This is Valley News Live at 5.
I'm sorry to the family. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. And I'm sorry.
A tearful apology from that woman, now convicted in the brutal November 2020 murder of her family friend's young child. 38-year-old Brandy Adelke will spend the next 30 years in prison after pleading guilty to murder and child abuse earlier this year in the death of 15-month-old Mika. Valley News Team's crime and safety reporter Bailey Hurley was in the courtroom this morning and has our story.
I feel pain every time I walk through my door because there's something's missing. I feel pain every time I hear my kids laugh because there's a little laughter missing.
It was barely 1 year ago when Amanda Carrillo's world changed forever.
Never in a million years. Like, she's watched almost everybody's kids, and like nobody ever thought that she would do something like this.
A friend of the Carrillo family for over 5 years, Brandy Adelke was having a sleepover with 15-month-old Mika at her South Fargo apartment last November when Adelke's defense attorney says Adelke just couldn't handle it anymore.
I don't understand how you could take a life of an innocent child and what she could have done so badly that made you hurt her.
When admitted to the hospital, doctors and investigators found blunt force trauma up and down Mika's small body. Details so gruesome, Cass County State's Attorney Ryan Youngren declined to recount. In a letter to the court penned by Mika's grandmother, Cindy, she wrote of the immense heartache felt by the family, words that choked up even the seasoned prosecutor.
Mika's 3-year-old sister, Octavia, asks, when Mika gets bigger, will she wake up and play with me? How do you explain that to a 3-year-old? I would not wish this on anyone, not even you, Brandy.
Adelke's sentence comes directly from the wishes of Mika's father, who Carrillo says was adamant he didn't want Adelke to spend the rest of her life in prison.
I would forgive her, but I would never forget what she's done. He's like, me giving her a life sentence is not going to bring my daughter back.
Carrillo says her family will never be the same and says while she's glad Adelke finally took responsibility, justice won't ever fully be served without Mika here in the world. Bailey Hurley, Valley News Live.
Adelke will be eligible for her 5 years of supervised probation around 2025. New tonight at 5, the former assistant track and cross-country coach for Oak Grove, accused of sharing child porn online, has pleaded guilty to possession of child pornography and promoting an obscene sexual performance by a minor. 34-year-old Daniel Stoa will be sentenced at a later date. Authorities received a tip from Twitter on January 19th regarding 2 photos. A search warrant was later executed at Stoa's home and he was arrested. A Fargo man has been sentenced for killing his girlfriend's Pomeranian dog earlier this spring. Authorities say 29-year-old Kiri Hill became upset with the dog because it was eating his food. 2 children who were witnesses to the incident told investigators that Hill hit the dog with his hand, which caused the dog to hit a wall in the living room. A veterinarian later told the woman the dog had severe bleeding in its lungs and had no heartbeat. Hill was sentenced to 360 days in jail with credit for time served and will pay restitution totaling over $1,700. The search continues for the driver who fled from an early morning police chase. Clay County authorities say they used several tactics to try and stop the vehicle. When it finally hit the ditch in the 5700 block of 57th Avenue South, the driver took off. A second person, 41-year-old Julie Oliver, was arrested for felony 5th-degree controlled substance and felony possession of burglary tools in connection with the incident. We now know the cause of the fatal crash on I-29 in Fargo last week that killed a 73-year-old woman. Authorities say Louise and Clinton Jouer were trying to fix a trailer that was attached to their pickup truck when the trailer was hit by a vehicle driven by Taylor Hamish. Louise was killed. Clinton sustained serious injuries. Hamish was not hurt, according to the crash report, and will not face charges. Speaking of crashes, take it easy when driving or walking on sidewalks and parking lots. The snow, wind, and those cold temps have made it slippery out there, and let's check in with our chief meteorologist about what's to come tonight. Hutch?
Mike, thanks so much. Good evening, everyone. A lot of snow out there along that Highway 200 to Highway 2 corridor, 8 to 12 inches. A few of you upwards of 14 inches in those heavy pockets, and all of that wind that we experienced throughout the late weekend as well. In the Fargo-Moorhead area, picking up about 5 inches of snow, rapidly dropping off to the south and to the far north. And that's what we're dealing with now. Cold temperatures. This morning's air temperatures were 10 to 20 below, with wind chills that were pretty ridiculous as well. And now with clear skies over us for now, temperatures are going to fall fairly quickly in the early part of our overnight hours. Here's a look at your air temperatures. That black line on Hutch's maps here, that's the 0 degree line. So below 0 up to the north and to the west, holding on to near 10 in the Southern Valley. That was peak temperatures today. And right now we're on our way down already. The early evening will be the coldest, as we have warmer air on its way even into the overnight for many of us. So we're going to take a look at that satellite radar. Clouds moving in, those will blanket in the warmth. Your planner for tonight, the early overnight will be the coldest. We'll dip below 0, but then see rising temperatures into the morning. The coldest area will be the area, Mike, with the deepest snow, and it stays sub-zero for many of you even into the morning hours. Be prepared for dangerous wind chills overnight and a warming trend. I'll have details on all of that coming up here in just a few moments.
All right, thanks, Hutch. One man was arrested after a fight broke out over the weekend inside the Denny's along 13th Avenue South in Fargo. Police say Martavis Ivy from Mississippi was arrested for terrorizing. According to police, one person was hurt in that fight that happened early yesterday morning and involved several people. Witnesses say Ivy threatened to have a gun and would shoot people. Police did not find a gun. 2 men have been charged for the September shooting death of a 32-year-old man in Moorhead. A Clay County grand jury indicted Idris Haji Muhammad with first-degree murder in connection to the death of Abdi Abdi. A jury also indicted Ibrahim Isaac with aiding and abetting murder. Court documents state that Abdi went to a Casey's gas station with a few other people. Documents also state that Haji Muhammad talked to them, then followed them to an apartment complex. And that's when documents say Haji Muhammad exited the vehicle and started chasing Abdi and shooting at him. Abdi was found dead with numerous gunshot wounds. The motive for the shooting is still unknown. If convicted, both men could face life in prison. Opening arguments begin on Wednesday in the trial of the former police officer Kim Potter, who shot and killed Dante Wright in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, claiming she accidentally mistook her gun for a taser. The prosecution and defense teams met with the judge today to finalize jury instructions. Potter's defense team wants the judge to issue a jury instruction at the end of the case, stating that if the former officer truly believes she was deploying her taser instead of shooting her firearm, the jury should rule that she is not guilty. Meanwhile, the prosecution is requesting limits be placed on the defense using character evidence for Potter. Potter says that she will take the stand in her own defense. A 65-year-old Polish immigrant says he's the one who assisted the parents of the teen charged with shooting and killing 4 students at a Michigan high school. 15-year-old Ethan Crumley is accused of also wounding 7 people when he opened fire at Oxford High School last week. James and Jennifer Crumley are facing involuntary manslaughter charges and were on the run as charges were announced. The man's attorney says he knew the pair were using his workspace, but he didn't know that police were searching for them. He has not been charged. Meanwhile, plans to reopen the high school is in the works. The Oxford superintendent says that the plan includes a soft reopening with the presence of law enforcement and trained counselors. The superintendent also said the reopening will be slow and gradual to support the emotional health of the students. The district's elementary schools will return on Friday for a half day and will fully open next Monday. Strict new testing requirements are in place tonight for travelers flying in the United States. Travelers need a negative COVID test within 24 hours of departure in order to board, but not all self-tests are eligible. And for those that are, a telemedicine doctor must witness the test. The Omicron variant has now been found in at least 17 states. And while President Biden's federal vaccine mandate for business is being challenged in the courts, the Senate plans to vote soon on a bill which would overturn that mandate. President Biden is pitching his Build Back Better bill straight to Americans' wallets and medicine cabinets. He says his plan will lower the costs of prescription drugs. The proposal would allow Medicare to negotiate prices for certain drugs, impose a penalty if companies increase prices faster than inflation, cap costs for seniors and those with disabilities, and lower the cost of insulin to $35 a month.
there came a time where I could no longer afford my insulin. I was forced to ration my supply of drug that is as vital to me as water.
The president's $1.75 trillion package, which was passed in the House, also includes money for universal pre-K and new funding to fight climate change. But not all provisions may survive the Senate, where the legislation needs every single Democratic vote in order to pass. The timeline for agreement is ambitious, with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer aiming to pass the bill before Christmas. Later on Valley News Live at 5, some of you are more likely to get the flu than others. Which group should be taking a serious look at getting their flu shot?
And we had a shot of wind and cold air this morning. Sub-zero temperatures for many areas, wind chills that were just brutal, and brutal road conditions as well. We're going on a warming trend. I'll have details on that, but it comes with a couple of hitches and a giddy up. Your forecast is next.